Hello, everybody, and happy Big Share Day. Thank you for tuning in and for being with us as we attempt to raise $500,000 in a day for our incredible 70 member nonprofits. I'm excited to bring to you here today Bianca Gomez from Freedom Inc. To talk more about their work around the Police Free Schools campaign and the work that they're doing in our community, knowing that so many of us were really tuned in with the Black Lives Matter movement last year, and we want to continue to see it succeed, accomplish its goals, and folks might not know what's happening with it right now. So we have Bianca here to talk more about what Freedom Inc. is up to and to make sure that we can all stay informed and stay engaged and keep moving their important work forward. So Bianca, I'll kick it over to you. Do you mind starting off just with telling us about yourself and giving a brief overview of all the incredible things that Freedom Inc. does?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So again, my name is Bianca Gomez. I use she, her pronouns. I'm one of the youth justice directors at Freedom Inc. And at Freedom Inc., we focus on ending violence in our communities, and that violence includes a large spectrum of harm and violence, including domestic violence and sexual assault, including issues around housing, issues around food, issues around police violence, issues around all of the things that really impact our people and prevent them from living a healthy and quality life and receiving life affirming services. And we work with mainly women, girls, and LGBTQ folks to do that work in our communities. And we really focus on leadership development, giving people the resources that they need, direct services, and also community organizing. And we're a Black and Southeast Asian liberation organization. So we're Black, Hmong, and Khmer. And we do all of our work really culturally specifically. So the Black folks have their own space to gather, to learn, to build, to be in community with each other. And the Hmong and Khmer folks have their own space as well to be with each other and build and address the specific needs of their community.
I'm so impressed with the incredible intentionality in the way that Freedom Inc. approaches your work and all the different issue areas and areas of service and need that you all are able to address in such an effective manner. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
I'm interested today to have you dig in a little bit further on the Police Free Schools campaign. Do you mind bringing us back to where it all started and talking a little bit about the origins of that campaign, where it began and from who and why?
Yes, thank you. So a lot of people may not have heard this story, even folks that are familiar with the campaign. But when Michael Brown was murdered by Officer Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri, a lot of folks from Freedom Inc. went to support organizers there on the ground. And one of the asks, they were like, thank you for coming. Thank you for helping us sustain this momentum for safety and accountability for the people that are harming, and taking away our Black children. Thank you for, supporting us and being here. But the ask is that you go back into your own community and talk to elders, talk to young people, talk to, the working folks about what is affecting them. And at that time, we had a group of kids that were, of course, in MMSD schools, and they really talked about officers in schools and the impact that has on them, right? So they may not have known the term like school to prison pipeline or disproportionately, like all of those very academic terms. but they didn't have experience about what was happening to them. And then after the murder of Tony Robinson, our young people became even more involved in ending police violence. And that's something that Freedom Inc. has engaged in for almost 20 years at this point. But this was really the impetus of the campaign, the start of the campaign. And then, so our young people started to go to school board meetings. They started to go to city council meetings. They started to do a lot of political education around police and schools and how that impacts the safety and wellness of Black and Brown children. There had already been numerous studies around the school to prison pipeline and police violence against young Black and Brown people. But during that time, there was just like an explosion across the country where multiple groups, even groups that have been fighting for it for 10 or 20 years, really gained some spotlight, and we were able to connect and build with them. So our young people started doing, again, intense political education, intense learning, intense development, intense policy analysis, and really challenging the people who are supposed to be holding accountability around their safety and wellness, holding them accountable for allowing this harm to happen and being blind to the harm that's happening to young Black and Brown people in schools, and LGBTQ students and students with disability, and all of those intersections were really important for us to highlight. So our campaign officially launched in 2017, but even before that, we had been working on addressing police and schools and all of the other types of harm that young people deal with on the daily. And then it really, like, our young people have just been like relentless and resilient in not backing down, even when people were telling them that they were wrong, even when people were telling them that they were thugs and criminals and all these awful things that they were saying to Black and Brown children. They did not back down, even when they were frustrated. I remember when the school board renewed the contract, they were devastated because they were like, we worked so hard for this. How could they hear this story of our trauma and still vote in favor of police and schools? How could they listen to us speak for 3 years at that point and see the violence that's happening all over the country and ignore police and schools? They felt like, I read this book, I read that book, I read that article, I read this policy, I presented it to you. We did direct action, which they was not always favorable. We went to hundreds of conferences around the country and presented the information like we did everything right. Why can't they get it right? So they were really devastated. That day still makes me sad, but in the end, they still kept pushing, they still kept fighting, they still kept learning, they still kept building. They educated an entire city around police violence. Like, at one point, it was the thing to talk about, right? Good or bad, right? So everyone who was elected to the school board that year talked about police and schools. It was one of the main topics, right? The mayor had to talk about police and schools. So they really shifted an entire community around what safety could and should look like for young people. So I'm just so proud of all of their work. And again, a lot of that work was led by Black girls and our queer youth, who are not always in the in the mainstream narrative around organizing. So I'm very proud of them, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity and continue to have the opportunity to work with Freedom Inc. that way. Sorry, I know that was long-winded.
That was great. No, I think it's helpful, I think, for people who are involved in organizing and for people who aren't involved in organizing, to get to hear all the different tactics that you all utilized and were thoughtful about in the ways that we try to reach people when we're organizing issues we care about, because no one strategy is going to work on every single person. It takes a multi-layered effort and people trying different things to get attention and be heard. And I am so impressed with the youth that are connected with Freedom Inc. and your team that helps to support them, because they are putting in so much energy and passion and commitment into knowing what their goal is and working tirelessly, like you said, relentlessly, to see it come to fruition, even in the face of so much
Yes.
negativity towards
Yes.
them. I'm curious if there's anything further that you would add, recognizing that we are talking primarily and a lot about youth here, and just any of the ways that you all work to support them in particular as they both develop these skills and engage in actions that some adults don't do in terms of interacting with their local government and policymakers.
Yes. So for us, it was really important to, again, remove police from schools, remove the thing that was had the biggest connection to the prison pipeline, right? That had the biggest connection to criminalization. But we also recognize, first of all, most of us have been in school. I used to be a teacher before I moved to Madison. And we know that the physical police officer in the school is only a small part of the problem when we're talking about dismantling anti-Blackness and dismantling racism and homophobia and all of those systems of oppression, right? So we also said removing police is not enough. One, because people can still teachers can still call the police, security can still do whatever. And we also need to be able to hold people accountable who use police to harm children. So we've all seen the Karen videos, right? The hashtag Karen videos where like people are getting police called on them for bird watching. A little boy was selling water on the sidewalk to raise money. Police called on him, right? Black girls at a swimming pool, police called on them. So we are like, those are not valid reasons to call the police on children, right? So we also know that that's happening in our schools. So we said we actually need to be able to hold adults accountable who use police to harm children through a transformative process. And that's something that parents and young people don't currently have the ability to do. So we also said that, again, removing police from schools is great, but we also need to invest in the leadership, wellness, and creativity of Black youth and youth of color. The issues that the schools are talking about and why they feel like they need police, that's actually the solution. The solution is investing in young people, investing in their creativity, investing in their academic fulfillment, as opposed to just standardized tests that are, like white history that they're forced to learn they actually deserve schools that teach them what they want to know to become successful in life. And then we also said, we understand that harm happens. Freedom Inc., again, we do a lot of work around ending violence in our community, including domestic violence and sexual assault. But punitive measures against young people is not effective. There has been so many studies. I've even written about it myself in my own work. So many studies around how punitive policies and practices, how zero tolerance policies, how broken windows theory, how all of those things that have been created as a way to keep children in line don't work. And people think it sounds so fluffy when you say it, but love works, support works, and guidance works when it comes to young people. It just does. And I know it's not always easy, right? I work with young people every day. I go home like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. That was a long day, but they're worth it and they deserve it. They deserve me to be in that space as a caring, loving adult, not somebody who, is causing harm to them, right? So we push transformative justice instead of punishment, right? That's really the only way. And the outcomes, I'm not going to go into all the research, but the outcomes of restorative justice and transformative justice and what it does for a young person and what it does for the school, what it does for the environment is so much better on that young person's, has a bigger positive impact on that young person's life than suspension, expulsion, police, detention, in-school suspension, all of those things. It doesn't work. We've tried it at this point for hundreds of years, and we have enough research to know that it doesn't work. And then the very last thing is community control. And this is something that Freedom Inc. has been fighting for a long time. We want our youth, their parents, and community members that are most impacted by the harm to actually have decision-making powers over schools, decision-making power over schools. So Freedom Inc. actually developed a community control proposal, which we presented to MMSD. And I would highly encourage folks to go look at it, to see what we mean, to see how we can truly transform disciplinary policies and accountability policies and safety in our school. What can safety actually look like and mean? To keep our young people whole, to keep them safe, to keep them loved, to keep them engaged, and all of those things that we want for our kids in our schools and outside and in our community. So I encourage people to go to the Freedom Youth Squad's Facebook page and check out our community control proposal. We also encourage folks to follow us on social media and stay up to date on all of the work that we're doing and find out how you can get involved. And of course, donate to us. Every dollar that comes into Freedom Inc. really goes out to the community. We have a food pantry, we have wellness grants, we have a lot of things that we provide to our community, and we invest in our young people. So all of those young people that I talked about that we're leading, they get paid a monthly stipend because we really want to show what it means to invest in them. And they put in a lot of work. So we invest those resources back into them as well.
That's huge. And I wholeheartedly am grateful and supportive of the work that you all are doing. And I know you touched on trying not to get too academic with it, but touching on these pieces of the ways that we're all operating within these white supremacist structures that and these kids are operating within it at school. And it's going to take all of us speaking up and learning and advocating to dismantle them and to have things be improved and be better. And I appreciate the role that you and the youth at Freedom Inc. have taken to challenge folks to think differently and just to reimagine the way that things can be and stop accepting that things can need to look a certain way, whether that's police in schools, or whether that's the way that our local government is structured, or the way that we're offering services around domestic violence and a number of other issue areas that Freedom Inc. touches on. I know you just laid out a couple of them, but are there any more ways that folks can plug into the work that Freedom Inc. is doing right now around police-free schools or other areas of your work?
Yes, so we have a Safe Schools Coalition, which is made up of mostly white allies who have a stake and who have an interest in participating in following the young people's leadership and what they're asking to be done around the Police Free Schools campaign. We are always accepting members for that. And we also really want people to really dig into what community control means and supporting that. So we encourage people to read the community control proposal. We encourage them to email the school board. We encourage them to talk to their friends and family about what community control means and what safety means for Black young people from the community, from Freedom Inc. and from our young people. And we also always are posting things on our social media about like volunteer opportunities and community engagement opportunities. So please make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at About Freedom Inc. And also, again, a reminder to donate today for the big share. That's why we're all here.
Yes, and Bianca touched on this earlier, and I'll repeat it again, that donations that go to organizations through the Big Share, through Community Share's fundraising efforts, they're unrestricted dollars that go to these nonprofits, Freedom Inc. and the 70 other nonprofits. So that allows them the flexibility to spend these funds in ways that they need to. And that for folks who are making donations to nonprofits today and throughout the year is such an incredible flexibility to give a nonprofit. It shows that you believe in their work, you trust them, you want them to use your donations where they need it most. That flexibility goes a long way in being able to sustain our local social justice movement. Thank you so much, Bianca, for giving us an update on where Freedom Inc. is at, on the great work that you and the team and the youth and all the folks connected to Freedom Inc., all the progress that's been made and where things are at. We appreciate all the work that you've done and hope that folks will continue to connect with you, continue to stay engaged and stay informed. I know we talked a little bit about local school board engagement. There's plenty happening there for folks to follow along with and keep their eyes on and speak up about. So thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in. We are so excited that we are in our 7th annual Big Share and appreciate all that everybody's doing today and hope that you'll consider giving. Thank you.
Thank you.